Hi there, Zach from GawkBox here. I'd love to tell you that it's been a really exciting week over here at GawkBox, but it's Monday, which is way earlier than we usually record this. So I'm not sure if it's been an exciting week or not. I'm sure it has been, though. There's a lot of things that we're working on updating. The good news is that you can go to blog.gawkbox.com on the day that this is released and see what those new updates are. You can also just go to gawkbox.com and see for yourself. But yeah, this week we're talking to Alicia, who goes by 8BitBlonde on Mixer. She also runs a few podcasts and does some contract work as a community manager. I wanted to sit down with her and talk about all the different things that being a professional community manager can bring to a stream, whether that's improving your social presence, improving your communications with your community, and everything in between. It's a great conversation. It's really exciting, and she was fun to have on. So give it a listen. Okay, great. Well, I'd love to kick off on like what it looks like being sort of a, now when you say community manager, I guess first question, do you do social or do you do everything? It's one of those like new sort of millennial nebulous jobs that like I have as well, where it's like you do everything or you only do one thing. So what does that job look like for you as a community manager?
So for my current client, like I'll use Red Barrels as an example,
Okay,
just because
perfect.
that's like my biggest client and what I'm like the face of.
Sure.
But yeah, so for them, it's an indie company. And when
Right.
I was working out of their studio in Montreal, I wore a lot of different hats
Mm-hmm.
just because those guys, they're really old school. They like focusing on game development
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of the business side of things.
Sure.
But the online component is relatively new. And while it's super important, they didn't necessarily have the know-how, to interact directly with
Yeah.
their community and
Sure.
content developers.
Sure.
So I dabbled a little bit in PR for them,
Okay.
marketing and stuff like that before we brought, other companies on board for that.
Okay. Amazing.
But yeah, so I do social and community management for that.
Awesome. I remember, so I feel like you probably wouldn't need as aggressive of a social presence with games that aren't online like Outlast, but at the same time, the thing that made me get the first Outlast game was that like there was a promotional video that was a bunch of different people playing it. I think they were like smaller influencers at the moment, but it was hilarious. And it was just like a compilation of them getting scared by different things in the game. And I was like, oh, I love horror games. This is hilarious. And I checked it out. So is that something that's in your wheelhouse as well, like video production and stuff like that? Or is it just the PR angle?
Yeah, so when I was working for them directly out of the studio, we did work on video production with another marketing company.
Amazing.
And I was basically the brand keeper for Outlast, working with that company.
Oh, very cool.
And we created a bunch of different content, video, imagery, all kinds of stuff like that.
So you actually had a hand in that video. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Is it the one where it's like the it's in like a booth?
Maybe.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, when they like brought people into that room and then just like scared the hell out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
That was
actually
amazing.
compiled the footage from our debut of the Outlast 2
Right.
playable demo at PAX East a couple years ago.
Very
We had
nice.
made this giant chapel that had different like individual rooms for people to play in.
Incredible.
And we had night vision cameras in there to catch the reaction.
Oh
And
my God.
it was so funny to go through all that footage and find people freaking
Oh, I
out.
bet it was so well done. Yeah, not to get too far out into the whole Outlast hole, but I loved that game was from Arizona. I'm also from Arizona, so when it's just like crawling around like through the desert, I'm like, oh, I totally get this. Where I grew up, there was nothing to do, so all we did for fun was crawl around in the desert. This makes perfect sense to me. Although I don't think there were quite as many lunatics out in Phoenix, Arizona, as depicted in
definitely bumped
Outlast.
up like the cultist count.
Yeah, I can't remember any cults from my childhood, but the scenery was familiar. Okay, amazing. So as far as things that you gather from being somebody who does wear all these hats, because I'm in a very similar position. I think there's 14 of us here at GawkBox. Although we have contract people too, so that number's always going up and down. But there's only one person for like social, for like video content, for like the brand management, as you say. And so there's just a million different hats to wear. And the question I'm trying to transition into is how does amassing all those skills help you in your streaming life? Or does it?
Oh, I mean, I think it helps on like a lower level because I stream as a pastime. Like for me, it's not my job. I work full time. For me, it's just, I don't want to say it's a hobby because it sounds dismissive, but it's definitely not my, like the bread and butter of my of my career, you know? So
Sure.
I take the things that I've learned in a professional capacity and I kind of like dial it back like 90% and then
Sure.
apply it to my stream.
Sure. I mean, it makes sense. Even as not a full-time streamer, you've still like amassed a pretty decent following. I think you're between like 12 and 13,000 followers at the moment, which is damn good, especially for Mixer. So I guess my assumption is that it would just be easier to apply all of that to like there's a lot of little things that in streaming people have a hard time with. Like maybe it's managing your social presence and tweeting at the right time, or you know, dealing with trolls and setting up your bots and your social so that people don't just like assault you with garbage and stuff like that. Are there any like quick tips and tricks that you've learned just from years of experience to help manage a community like that?
Oh gosh. Well, definitely like knowing how to talk to your community, to your stream community is like totally key. Like that's really important. Knowing the hours that they're the most active, knowing the best way to reach them. Like, I mean, I think the most popular would probably be Twitter and Discord, especially for Mixer's, you know, community at large.
Absolutely.
But yeah, getting like knowing when they're available, where to reach them, and when to post is super important because, you know, people have day jobs.
Sure.
And so it's not always easy to like convey information about like a special stream you're having,
or
you know, stuff like that.
Right.
So that's knowing those types of things from a professional standpoint have made it a lot easier to connect with my community.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As far as like the things that you can post on Twitter when you're trying to have special streams and things like that, what are like the secret algorithms of like the perfect tweet that you would post to get somebody into something? You know what I mean? It's like the psychology of Twitter. Images
always do better. Oh, really? So if you have a graphic to go, like let's say you're doing a charity stream, if you want to catch people's attention and also catch Twitter's attention algorithm side, include an image. Make sure you do your research to know the boundaries of like the display image.
Oh,
and the
super
preview
interesting.
There's a lot of sites out there that will give you a breakdown, even give you templates that will put, you know, your most eye-catching graphic or tagline like right at the center, so people, whether they're on mobile or on desktop, will be able to see that in the preview.
Right.
It takes a little bit more work, but it's definitely worth it to put in the effort, especially if it's something that, you know, you want to gain like a lot of traction, retweets and stuff like that. Make it something that people want to share.
So something that's maybe not like, I know what you mean, because I've fallen into this trap a couple times where you're like, we're trying to promote something, we're trying to promote or like announce something. And by the time I'm done getting all the detail out of it, it could be quite like boring and logistical, right? And so it's like, oh, this thing that GawkBox did is very cool. Here's a like, but that may be as far as it gets. And so that's an appreciated point, like I think for people to hear and for me to hear as well. It's just like, make sure it's funny and interesting, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to, that's why like I always hate when people, like really popular accounts post those like tweets and they're like for this or retweet for that, because like people are always predispositioned to do the like instead of the retweet.
Sure.
Because a retweet's an endorsement, right?
Yeah, it's unbalanced.
I know I'm super anal retentive about what goes on my Twitter feed, like to a ridiculous amount that I shouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially if you run one for a company, you have to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, streamers have to remember that their public Twitter accounts are basically brand accounts. And so anything that you put up on your Twitter account, anything that you retweet is a reflection and an extension of you as a streamer. And I don't think that everyone understands that.
No, I think you're right. Some people it works really well for. Like some people, they've got like a really keen sense of like natural comedy to themselves that they can use on their Twitter, and they'll post things that are like maybe a little bit harsh or a little bit brash, but they're still funny, and all their viewers like really like it. But I do know what you mean, and some people like get on arguments and they're like, you know, stream Twitter and all that. It's like, I don't think you should do that. I don't know. Do you think you should create? Do you think people should create separate personal accounts if they are streamers, or is that too much?
I mean, I don't think that personally. I don't think it should be necessary. Like, I think that you, with the exception of a few very big figures in the streaming community, a lot of people don't have characters that they play on stream. They're just themselves.
Sure.
So, you know, if you're a streamer who like, I mean, I'm an M-rated streamer. I'm always on 18 plus just because I swear. I swear and can't control myself.
Yeah, for sure. I would do the same thing.
But, you know, I don't think you want to have two personas online, because then when it comes to making, reaching out for brand deals and sponsorships and stuff like that, they're going to want to look at both those accounts anyways. And it might not jive with them that you have two different personalities.
Right.
So I just, I'm not saying that people should like stifle their personality, but just professionalism on social media is always super important.
Dial it back, keep it tight. Don't post like crazy songs on there or anything like you would on a personal Twitter account. Okay, one more Twitter question just because I think it's super fascinating. What do you think about, because I've heard about half and half on this. Some people are like, oh, it's great for engagement. Some people are like, this is poison, social media poison. When you post like hashtag Monday motivation things and you're like, what's your Tuesday thoughts on Outlast 2's DLC? Like, do you endorse that sort of thing, or is that like totally unmotivated Twitter behavior?
Like, do you mean like buying into popular hashtags?
Yeah, yeah, I do, but more explicitly like the daily ones. Like there's one for pretty much every day of the week at this point.
I mean, I made a hashtag on Twitter for Outlast, actually, just to kind of give as an example. I wanted to share a cosplay that someone had done of one of our characters, so I did a hashtag Murderer Monday. But that was just like
that's more specific.
Like a one-off, like kind of silly, like it was topical for the tweet. But I mean, from a personal standpoint, I think it can be good, and I think it can be engaging. But sometimes it's a lot.
Sure.
Like it's so funny you asked this question, because I was going through my Twitter timeline this morning, and it was like showing me all the tweets I had missed over like the past 24 hours. And there were so many of them that were like about the grind and like getting up and going for it on Monday. And I was just like, I'm like sitting there in my pajamas drinking my coffee, and I'm like, I don't want to get it. Like, I don't want to go for it.
Don't have that hashtag Monday motivation at all.
Yeah, don't get that out of here. I think it's a good thing, and I think I mean, you always see people lifting each other up and and cheering each other on, and I think it is a good. But my freaking computer just like went into sleep mode, and I think it's because I actually had this full screen. That's never happened to me before. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, back to the question. I think depending on your audience, it can be well received, and if they're into building each other up and offering life advice, I think it's good. But I definitely, with stuff like that, you always want to keep an eye on the level of interaction. So I mean, if you tweet it one day and no one responds, then maybe it's time to dial it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. That's probably bored a bunch of people to tears about Twitter, but if you want to improve your social presence, you now know the people to ask, the people who are actively trying to figure it out in their day-to-day lives as the ecosystem rapidly changes and nobody cares about the same thing for 2 days in a row. Yeah. But I digress. You have a bunch of like projects that you're running concurrently, as we talked about before, whether it's like your contract work or your podcasts or your stream or something like that. How do you handle starting something up like that and then building a community to get started around that? Like your Fallout podcast is a great example, I think. Okay,
so this is probably not the best advice, but it's what happened to me.
We'll see.
I love Fallout, and when Fallout 76 was announced, I kind of lost my mind. I was so excited, and I just felt like taking my excitement and channeling it into something productive. I didn't really think about it. Like, I was literally laying in bed when that announcement came out. I was watching it on my iPad, and then as soon as the announcement was over, I like went and I nabbed the Twitter handle. I went and I nabbed the email address. And at that point, it was kind of like, oh, like, I guess I'm doing this.
What is the name of the podcast? Because it's very good.
It's called Radio 76.
I can't believe you grabbed that. That's so good.
I got pretty lucky, I think.
No, so this last week I listened to Country Roads by John Denver so many times that Spotify started like trying to recommend country music to me. I don't listen to country music, but I listen to my Discover Weekly today, and it's like, you might like all these songs by people who are like John Denver, and I'm like, just the one, Spotify, just for Fallout.
This is where we draw the line.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a great idea. I'm super hyped for that game as well. But when you start up something like this, or Your Girls on Gaming podcast has gotten super popular. How do you get people to approach and enjoy a project like that? I mean, especially podcasts are hard to get to people.
Yeah. Podcasts are hard. They're a hard sell, right? Because it's just a purely audio experience, and not a lot of people are willing to give up their Spotify playlist to listen to someone talk to them.
Right.
So for us, it's really been about finding a niche and finding a community that want to come back every single week or whenever we publish. So social media, obviously invaluable when you're trying to spread word and information and share a new product or project. Following the right people, reaching out to the right people, and asking them to get involved. We've been very lucky with Girls on Games that we've been able to get on quite a few high profile guests.
Really?
Yeah, which has really helped.
You guys are sponsored by XSplit, is it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We're sponsored by XSplit, and as well as Fun.io, which they're a hosting service provider in Montreal.
Very cool.
So I mean, it's just about consistency and putting yourselves out there. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to take something that they've created. At least I know personally for me, it's hard for me to take something I've created and kind of put it out into the world. Sure. Because it's like sink or swim sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when it's just an hour of like your voice, it's like, do people like this? Do people hate this? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What was I going to ask next? I'm totally just like falling flat over here. I don't usually do these on Mondays, so it's usually like, no, it's not your fault. In fact, I'm glad to schedule. Well, no. So I usually have more time to prepare. We're like running around the office, repairing the internet and like all these things like right before this. But podcasts are super tough to like get people to listen to. They're super like in depth and stuff like that. And it's really cool that you guys have been able to pull that off. Who have you had on the podcast that's been so enticing?
Oh gosh. Okay, you're kind of putting me on the spot.
That's okay.
Let me see. We had most recently Patricia Somerset. She does the voice of Zelda in the
Very cool.
game.
Very cool.
I want to say Victoria Atkins, who does
that sounds super familiar
for Assassin's Creed.
Oh, very nice.
We did also have one of the Kind of Funny guys on our podcast recently.
Which one? I love the Kind of Funny guys. Listen to the podcast every day.
I don't know his name.
Oh no!
I don't do the interviews.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Not all of them, because a lot of them take place during the week, and I'm not available. So one of our other co-hosts will sit down with them and do the interview. But yeah, so that's been really great. And once someone like that retweets your podcast, it kind of propels you very upward. Absolutely.
So maybe if there is like something in the Mixer ecosystem to be garnered from that, it's like, do you make friends with the right people, retweet their tweets, stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I am a huge believer in making genuine relationships on social media.
Absolutely.
Not just, trying to become friends with someone to get something out of them.
Absolutely.
But like getting to know people. And that's what everyone who comes into my stream and asks me, like, how do I start streaming? How do I get more than, X number of viewers? And one of my biggest pieces of advice to people is hang out with other streamers, get to know them. Don't, like I said, don't get to know them with the sole intention of riding their coattails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get to know them and get to know their communities. And there's so many streamers that I've come to know on Mixer where we have such an overlap in our communities because we host one another, we give each other shout outs and stuff like that, and it's because we genuinely believe in the other person's content. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we do here as a company that we definitely make an effort to do is to work with. That's why we like the Mixer community so much, because this is possible, is to have phone calls with people, like regarding their experience with the company or what they'd like to see or like what they'd like to change and stuff like that, and have interviews like this, just because so many people will be caught off guard and like, you want to have a phone call? And I'm like, yeah, we want to get to know the people who are using our product and stuff like that. So I definitely think that's great advice to really get to know the important people and just everybody in any particular community. Yeah, will help the word get out a little bit more. Cool. Well, let's walk towards wrapping this up. I got a few more small questions for you. I think one of the things that people including myself, tend to mess up is SEO and figuring out what. Are you about to tell me that you also don't know what you're doing on SEO? Because it's difficult. It's another one of those things that's like always changing. There's so many like plugins and like rules and stuff like that. But if you had any advice on keywords, tags, and things like that, what would it be? If you don't, that's okay too.
So that's actually not something I handle. I have
Really?
people that handle that for me.
This is how like disillusioned I am with what the community manager role actually is, because this is not what mine is like.
Well, and so it's not always like that. It's not always like that. But I worked out of a larger company that did contract work, and so we had teams of people that were dedicated to, the pure number side of things. So I was more of the human interaction side of things.
Sure.
Whereas they were, I would tell them, this is what happened when I posted this. This is the human feedback I got. Can you look at the number side of things?
Turn it to robot speak.
Yeah, so we were kind of separate, and it's the same thing with Girls on Games, and the same thing with Radio 76. I mean, Radio 76 is still like a little baby podcast, so I'm growing that much more organically. But with Girls on Games, we have a team member who I don't want to say specializes in that, but she kind of does. That's her forte. But it's like you said, it's changing all the time. And it's so kind of a nightmare to stay on top of.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
We've started up a blog recently, and it's like all these things. And so we've got something that measures how good the SEO is. And I'll just do everything in my power, and it'll be like, it's not very good SEO still. I'm like, I just don't know. Is it
the add-on that like will turn different colors?
Yes.
Yeah, I hate that.
When I was it's so picky.
Content,
yeah.
When I was focusing on written content a couple of years ago, I would like sit there and I was like, I hate you. Like I would just watch it change colors, and I was like, I hate you so bad.
Yeah, it's like your slug is too long and it's ugly and I hate it. And I'm like,
I was like so offended. I was like, this is my work and you're making me cut it down to little nugget-sized things.
Amazing. Well, as long as we're all guessing, I guess we're okay. There's somebody out there who's nailing it at SEO, and figure out who that is someday. But for the moment, we're just making our way along. All right, amazing. Well, I think there's been a lot of useful stuff in here. I think there's some stuff that people will be able to use to help grow their Mixer streams, to help maybe improve, I don't want to say the quality of their community because that sounds like diminutive, but improve the quality of communications in their community maybe.
Yeah, get the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been great. I can't thank you enough for agreeing to sit down with me and chat with me for a little bit. It's been awesome. Are you going to PAX West?
I am not.
You're not going to make it to PAX?
Unfortunately. No, I'm getting married next month.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Weddings cost a lot of money. Thank you. But yes, weddings cost a lot of money. And no, we went to PAX East.
Marginally more important than going to PAX is a lifelong partnership, so it's totally fine.
But next year, hopefully, I'd love to get out to that side of the States and be able to join you guys.
Amazing. No, I only ask because it's like a stone's throw away from our office, so we're all on PAX fever already. We're super hyped for it. So
that's fun. That's so exciting, though.
Amazing. Great. Well, Alicia, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to find your content, first of all, I guess, what would you like them to find? Since you've got so many projects, what's like the hierarchy of things that you would like people to visit of yours?
I mean, you can find me on Mixer, Twitter, and Xbox Live if you're into that kind of stuff at 8BitBlonde.
Got it.
And Radio 76 is my podcast, and that's available on iTunes and Podbean.
Great.
And Girls on Games as well. We're on Twitter, website, iTunes as well. All
amazing. Amazing. I'll toss up as many links as I can fit on the screen, but if it starts to look cluttered, I might have to cut one or two. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, and we'll have to catch up soon. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.